गुड मॉर्निंग सिक्स क्लास, हाउ आर यू बेटा? आई एम फाइन। बेटा हमने चैप्टर 16 जैब्रा का शुरू किया हुआ है, जैब्रा का। तो आज हम उस चैप्टर को थोड़ा सा डिजी में देखेंगे। ओके स्टूडेंट, लेट्स स्टार्ट। जो आपने रीड किया है, समझा है इस चैप्टर को, आज हम इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ एलजेब्रा, एल्जेब्रिक एक्सप्रेशंस को देखेंगे, इंट्रोडक्शन टू एल्जेब्रिक इक्वेशंस को भी देखेंगे। तो लेट्स स्टार्ट। Variables and constant.
Seller's grandfather has 2 boxes of chocolates. He opens one box. It has 10 chocolates. He does not reveal the number of chocolates in the second box. He asks seller to guess the total number of chocolates in both boxes. Seller replies that the total number of chocolates is the sum of x and 10. What is the x that seller is talking about? Seller uses x to represent the unknown quantity of chocolates in the second box. We do not know the exact number of chocolates in the box. It could be 0 or 1 or 9 or 17 or 24 or maybe even 40 or any number. Thus, its quantity is variable. To represent this variable and unknown quantity, we use a letter. We can use any letter such as A, B, T, M, P or X. Such letters which represent unknown numbers with no fixed value are called variables. On the other hand, we know the exact number of chocolates in one box. As the number is fixed and known, we call it a constant. Let's take a look at some variables and constants. The temperature varies every day as shown in the chart. As there is no pattern or trend in the temperatures recorded in previous days, it's difficult to predict tomorrow's temperature at 9 in the morning. If we want to represent the temperature tomorrow at 9 in the morning, we could use a variable such as T. Let's take another example. Here we see the sales of computers of company A. Sales are given for the months of June, August, October and December. Can we predict the sales for the month of April? As you can see, the sales vary and it is difficult to guess the number of computers sold by company A in any given month. Therefore, we can say that the number of computers sold by company A in April could be represented by a variable such as D. Similarly, the number of hours in a day does not change. It is always 24 hours and therefore it is a constant. We know that the number of days in a week is 7. This number is fixed and hence it is a constant. Next, let's see some examples of constants. In a soccer match, each team starts out with 11 players. As the number of players in a soccer team is fixed, it is a constant. Now, variables and constants belong to a branch of mathematics called algebra. Other branches of mathematics include arithmetic and geometry. Arithmetic deals with numbers, whereas geometry deals with shapes. Algebra is another branch of mathematics that uses letters that can assume any value to represent and calculate unknown numbers or variables. Now, let's see some examples of how variables are used. This pattern is made of repeated V's using straws. Each V is made up of 2 straws. Therefore, to create 2 V's, we use 4 straws, and to create 3 V's, we use 6 straws, and so on. In other words, the number of straws required is twice the number of V's formed. Now, let's say we want to find the number of straws required for an unknown number of V's. We represent the unknown number of V's by a variable, such as n. Therefore, based on our rule, we can say that the number of straws required will be 2 times n. Now, observe this table that lists the number of straws used to form each motif in this pattern. Can you identify the rule to find the number of straws required to form an unknown number of such motifs? Consider the unknown number of motifs to be p.
ओके स्टूडेंट्स, तो आपके सामने है 1 नंबर ऑफ मोटिव दिखाया गया है. उसमें 1 में कितनी है? 6, 8 है, दूसरे में 16, तीसरे में 24. ओके स्टूडेंट्स.
Observe that each motif requires 8 straws. Therefore, to form p motifs, the number of straws required will be 8 times p. Let's look at a couple of examples. If Sela is 12 and Tony is 20 years old, then the difference between their ages is 8 years. So, at any point of time, if we know Sela's age, we can find Tony's age too. We can represent Sela's age at any point of time as x years. Therefore, Tony's age will be x plus 8 years. A basket contains 25 apples. Now, how can we represent the number of apples in terms of baskets? Let's see. If the number of baskets was 2, the number of apples would be 50. Similarly, if the number of baskets was 5, the number of apples would be 125. As the number of baskets is variable and unknown, we can represent it with a variable such as s. Thus, we can represent the number of apples in terms of baskets as 25 times s. This smaller jug contains 3 liters less than the amount of milk in the bigger jug. Can you find the amount of milk in each jug using the variable m?
शो आंसर देखिए, इसका क्या आंसर है आपका.
As the volume of milk in the bigger jug is not known, we represent it as m liters. Therefore, the amount of milk in the smaller jug will be 3 less than m liters.
ये सब कुछ मैंने आपको क्लास में समझाया था बेटा. सब्ट्रैक्शन बैक करते हैं तो भी माइनस आता है, बिफोर आएगा तब भी माइनस आएगा. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज,
Anita has arranged some books on her bookshelves. 10 books are left over. How many books are there in all if the number of books Anita has arranged is y? The number of books Anita has arranged on the shelves is y. 10 books are left over. Therefore, the total number of books is the sum of the books on the shelves, which is y, and the number of books left over, which is 10. We can use variables to form some rules in geometry. We know that the perimeter of a square is 4 times the length of its side. The length of the side could be 6 units, 8 units, or 10 units, or any number of units, and thus it is variable. So, we can generalize the formula by using a variable such as L to represent the length of each side. Therefore, the perimeter of a square can be generalized as 4 times L. Similarly, we can use variables to formulate a rule for finding the perimeter of a rectangle. We know that the perimeter of a rectangle is 2 times the sum of its length and breadth. The length and breadth can be of any value. Therefore, we can use a variable such as L to represent the length and another variable such as B to represent the breadth of a rectangle. Thus, we can state that the perimeter of a rectangle is 2 times the sum of L and B. This is an equilateral triangle. Think of how you can use a variable to come up with a rule for finding its perimeter.
कहते हैं ट्रायंगल है आपके DEF is an equilateral triangle. Think of you can use a variable to come up with rule of find its perimeter. Use the variable a. तो a तो हमारा आंसर हो जाएगा 3a क्योंकि 3 साइड्स हैं इसकी.
As an equilateral triangle has 3 equal sides, we multiply 3 by the length of its side to find the perimeter. The length of one side can be any number and is therefore variable. So, we represent the length with a variable such as a. Thus, in a general way, we can say that the perimeter of an equilateral triangle is 3 times a. We can also use variables to generalize the rules in arithmetic. Do you remember the commutative property of addition for whole numbers? According to the commutativity of addition of two numbers, say 5 and 3, the sum of 5 and 3 is equal to the sum of 3 and 5. This property is true for any two numbers. So, we can represent the two numbers using variables such as p and q. Thus, we have generalized a rule for commutativity of addition of numbers using variables. Similarly, we can generalize the rule for the commutativity of multiplication of numbers. According to the commutativity of multiplication of two numbers, say 2 and 7, the product of 2 and 7 is equal to the product of 7 and 2.
तो मल्टीप्लिकेशन में
This is true for any two numbers, and hence we can use variables such as a and b to represent the numbers. An example for distributivity of multiplication over addition is displayed here. Now, using the variables k, l, and m, generalize this rule. As the property of distributivity of multiplication over addition is true for any three numbers, we represent those three numbers using variables such as k, l, and m. Thus, we can write the generalized rule as shown here.
देखो स्टूडेंट्स जनरलाइज रूल यूजिंग क्या है हमारा. जैसे इन्होंने बोला 9 को मल्टीप्लाई करना है 100 + 2 से. तो पहले इनको 9 को 100 से मल्टीप्लाई किया, सेम 9 को 2 से मल्टीप्लाई किया. नंबर ऑफ स्क्वायर्स दिए हैं, नंबर ऑफ स्ट्रॉस दिए हैं. तो यानी कि इसमें बताना है कि आपके कितने नेक्स्ट में कितने आएंगे. तो देखिए इसमें पहला क्या है, नंबर ऑफ स्क्वायर्स कितने थे, 1 था, और नंबर ऑफ स्ट्रॉस कितने यूज किए थे, 4. तो 1 + 3 = क्या आ गया, 4. तो इसका रूल बना हमारा 3n + 1. अब देखिए आपने इसमें क्या क्या सीखा है. मैथमेटिक्स में अर्थमेटिक, ज्योमेट्री, अलजेब्रा के बारे में है. अलजेब्रा में कांस्टेंट एंड वेरिएबल्स के बारे में रीड किया है. तो फर्स्ट पॉइंट क्या था, अलजेब्रा इज द ब्रांच ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स दैट यूजेस वेरिएबल एंड कांस्टेंट. कांस्टेंट होते जो स्थिर रहते हैं, लगातार चलते हैं. एनी क्वांटिटी दैट हैज़ ए फिक्स वैल्यू इज कॉल्ड ए कांस्टेंट, जो मैंने आपको भी बताया. लेटर्स ए बी सी एंड एक्स वाई जेड दैट रिप्रेजेंट अननोन नंबर्स with no fixed value are called variables. Variables can be used in real world situations, or variables are useful in forming rules for pattern as well as in generalizing rules in geometry and arithmetic. Okay students, तो ये आपने अभी रीड किया था. Let's continue. ओके स्टूडेंट्स, तो ये था हमारा चैप्टर अलजेब्रा का, जो कि आपने अच्छे से देखा है और आपने इसकी प्रैक्टिस भी करनी है. ओके स्टूडेंट्स, हैव ए नाइस डे, टेक केयर.